haven't done a video in a couple of weeks, but that hasn't been for the lack of not having what to share with you. I've just had a few feedbacks that I've sort of been exploring. So, and it's the idea of transitioning into a podcast, knowing, as mothers, we always have a lot of things going on, and some would like to listen, whereas also there are some who would love to continue watching the YouTube videos. So I've just been, trying to get my head around that. Podcast was originally the plan, so I'm sure that at some point, there would be that shift. Also to give me the opportunity to have guests who would come on and we just talk about certain topics which relate to motherhood and how we can continue to thrive doing what we know best to do and what we've been called to do. So today I'm going to be sharing on something that is so close to my heart. I will not guarantee that this might not be emotional for a lot of us, myself included. So I'm just sharing a piece of my life's experience with you today, and a few tips on what I did and how I've continued to grow in that experience and just be the best that I can be, because really that's what God desires. So hopefully you can get something out of this, but also I would really love to read your comments and your thoughts on this particular video. So let's get right into it. My name is Oge, just by way of introduction. I know this is probably video number 4, but I thought I'd still say that. And I'm a coach. I'm a Christian health coach, transformation coach, and maternal health well-being advocate. I'm a mom of 4, or rather, should be the other way around. I'm a wife, and then I'm a mother of 4 young children. I completed my executive MBA end of 2022. So I handed in my thesis. Actually, no, I completed, end of 2022. It feels so long now, it's long ago now, end of 2022. And I did my thesis on a topic that, affects us as mothers. As common as this is, it's almost like a taboo to talk about it. Many people don't like to talk about it because of the grief that, kind of surrounds it, and also what it does to us, like sort of when we have to relive the experiences again. So I was on social media streets a few days ago, and this was Facebook. Before I wrote my thesis, I kind of joined a few Facebook groups just to help me get the kind of information that I was trying to pull out to make my thesis a strong case, or rather to sort of put out the information that I was trying to make the world know and embrace. And so I joined a few groups, miscarriage support groups. So I'm talking about miscarriage today. I joined a few miscarriage support groups, but since I finished my thesis, I've sort of been dipping in and out of those groups. And initially when I joined the first time, whilst I was doing my thesis, it was really hard because I felt like just being there and reading some of the comments and, just having to see and read how other women, other moms were taking, that whole experience of miscarriage. It sort of got me to points where I felt like I was reliving my own experience. Yes, I do have 4 kids, but I had a miscarriage before my last pregnancy. And a few days ago, I had a message pop up on my phone. And it was a message that was put on this group, this miscarriage support group on Facebook. And the lady had written on there, "I can't cope. I'm struggling. Oh my gosh." And I remember reading that statement, and I just had tears in my eyes. I almost felt that pain instantly. Not just for myself, but for her, and then all these comments, and other ladies, other moms, were just leaving comments and stuff, and she kept saying, I can't deal with this. I can't handle it, and that just really, really got to me. And, I remember sitting just in front of my computer, and I said a prayer for her, because, this is not an experience that anybody should really go through. But yeah, for some reason, it just happens. But I'm a person of faith, so I always believe that there is something greater. How that is going to happen, I don't know. However, in the moment when I went through it, it was hard to actually even embrace the fact that there was something greater coming. I already had 2 young girls, and that was what would have been my 3rd pregnancy. And I was 12 weeks in when I miscarried. Now, I don't know, but I think there's something that happens with us as moms where it's almost like we know what's going to happen just before it happens. I don't know if it happens to you, but that was the one pregnancy that was a bit difficult for me. My first 2 pregnancies were a breeze. I went through them, and the way that I experienced my first 2 pregnancies, I could really just be popping out babies like I'm getting an award for it. That's how good my pregnancies were. But that 3rd one was hard. It was a pretty hard pregnancy, and I hadn't gone far in it, but I continued working out. My mom was there, but I was getting headaches, and my body just wasn't feeling right. But I kept pushing, and I kept praying and confessing and doing all of those things. And I remember that afternoon, I was with my little girls. They were getting their hair done, and I had just come in from, I don't know where I went to. I'd come into the house, and I did a workout. After I'd done the workout, I felt really tired, which was pretty unusual. And I remember my mom would always say to me, your bump looks really small. Your bump looks really small. For how far gone you are, your bump looks. I said, well, I'm a fit mom, so it's bound to be small. I'm quite petite, but she just kept saying that, and she was praying. My mother is a very spiritual woman, and she was praying through. And I remember that day, I just really didn't feel good. After my workout, I said to the hairdresser, I said to her, I'm gonna go up. My head aches. I just need to lie down. I met my mom on my way going upstairs, and she goes, go lie down. But then she prayed, and she was just coming with me, and she was praying. I got upstairs. I managed to call my sister, and I said, I don't feel really good. I don't know, I don't feel really good. What I didn't tell you was, prior to this time, my husband and I had gone for our first scan. And I remember when I got there, they checked me and everything, and the look on the nurse's face, it's like, okay. I didn't really think anything because I was just tired. I just laid down there, excited to be pregnant, but I knew that my body wasn't responding. I just felt some way. So she goes, oh, let me get a doctor. She went out, brought the doctor. My husband was seated there. The doctor came in, and I think this is what this particular bit of what I'm about to say is one of the reasons that I strongly believe that God keeps putting a desire on my heart for mothers. You see, whatever desire or passion that we have for something, it's not something that we put in there by ourselves. God always places these desires in there for a reason. Now, this particular thing that happened is an experience that I wouldn't forget in a hurry because of also, sort of what happens when it comes to maternal health. So the doctor comes in and looks at me and he goes, oh, well, your scan shows that there is no heartbeat and your fetus should have grown up to 13 weeks today, but the fetus shows that, the scan shows that the fetus stopped growing at 7 weeks. He just blotted it out. There was no empathy with that. There was nothing. And it's now when I sit and I think about it, I'm like, okay. So he just said it and he goes, well, I would have you go home and we'll see what happens. So I'm saying, okay, what does that mean? There's no heartbeat. Is the heartbeat going to come back? I mean, what are we supposed to do? Mind you, I'd never heard or experienced anything like this before. And he goes, well, just go home, you know, and we'll see what happens. And it was later on I understood what he meant by we'll see what happens. They were expecting me to actually miscarry. They were expecting for that fetus to come out. I didn't know. My sister is a doctor. So we left and I told her what the doctor said. And excuse me, she was like, okay, but we're just praying. I still didn't feel very well. So I remember the Sunday of that particular weekend, we had gone to visit a friend. And whilst we were there, I mean, if I had my own way, I wouldn't have gone, but this is my very close friend. And they, you know, her and her husband and children were expecting us. So we went and she had prepared food. It was in her house I started spotting. I didn't know what that was. I went into the toilet to do a wee and I saw that I was spotting. I came out and I said to my husband, I whispered to him, I said, I saw blood and spotting. He didn't know what that meant. So we spent a few more minutes and we left because at this point I was feeling really tired. So got home, told my sister, and she goes, just keep an eye on it. My mom, everybody was praying, but look, like probably they knew, I don't know. So on this particular day that I had finished the workout and I went back up to my room, it felt like my whole body, it felt like things were just moving around. I don't know. I just didn't feel me. I spoke to my sister. She goes, okay, see how you feel and call the ambulance. As I was talking to her, I said to her, oh, I need to poo. I need to do a poo. I need to do number 2. Guys, literally left that room. My little girl had just come out with a mommy, mommy, mommy. Left that room, went to the bathroom to have a shower, to use the toilet and have a shower. I got there and boom, the fetus came out. My daughter saw it, dropped. I know it's a bit graphic, but my daughter saw it and I cried. I looked at it, I didn't know, I just cried. My daughter stood there, she was 2.5. She stood there and then she ran down and called no, she was 3. No, she wasn't 3 yet, but she was going to turn 3. So she called my mom came up, my sister called again and said, call an ambulance. I called my husband, he rushed back home from work. Now I called the hospital and the lady on the end said, oh, just pick it up and tie it up in a plastic bag and bring it. Whew. Pick it up, tie it up, and bring it. Those were the words, just as I said it. Pick it up, tie it up in a plastic bag, and bring it. We got to accident and emergency. This was in the UK. Got there, and I told them I wasn't even checked. Nobody spoke to me. Nobody looked at me. Nothing was said. The lady just said, oh, give it to me. She took the plastic bag off me and she goes, that's it, you can go. And she took it and asked us to go. That experience was so traumatic, And my husband and I left that whole drive, I didn't say a word. I felt like I was in a twilight zone. I don't know what that looks like, but I felt like I wasn't quite there. Something left me, like literally left me. I got home, my mom was there waiting, and she gave me the best hug anybody could give. My husband he didn't know what to do. He held my hand, we went upstairs to our room, and I cried. I cried and I cried. And he held me and he said a prayer. And you know, everything else that happened that whole period, felt like a blur. My pastor's wife called. I had support. I had good support system. They called, they were praying for me, they were encouraging me. It's one thing to have people praying for you and encouraging you. It's another thing for you to open up and receive. And I think when it comes to grieving, and I think grieving, it all goes through different phases and stages. And I truly believe that people should be allowed to get to the point where they eventually open up and receive. Once you get to that point of allowing yourself to open and receive, that's when healing starts. But prior to that time, the individual needs space to possibly understand what's happened, or might not even completely understand what happens, but needs to make peace with, that experience that they've been through. And I know that we all go through these things differently. For me, I'm a strong believer. Like, my faith is so strong in God. But I realized very quickly that when I want to stretch my faith, I do. When I don't want to, I don't. And at that point, the whole why question, and we all have our personal relationships with God, and I talk to Father God like he's seated here, like I'm talking to my dad. I couldn't help it. Don't tell me, don't ask him why. It's already in my thoughts. He knows what I'm thinking. And I always say to God, Father, you know what I'm thinking. I'm going to just say it. So that was how I did that. And I remember one of the times I sat with God and I said, you know what? You will bless me, but I'm not going to accept one. I remember saying to him, the minimum that I'm going to have, or I'm going to accept, is 2. Well, I don't even know what I was thinking, but yes, I said that to God, and I was so convinced in what I said. I was so convinced that he was going to do it. Now, the second part of this experience or the story, I'm going to share in a different video. But the point of doing this today was, what triggered it was that comment I saw in that group, miscarriage support group on Facebook. I truly felt what that lady was feeling on that day. I felt that loss again. Every now and again, my kids used to talk about that miscarriage. My boys would ask questions, and they tried to, kind of get their head around, oh, what would the baby have looked like? Would it have been a boy or a girl? And this conversations, it's almost like you can't even run away from them. So I've come to a point where I've given myself enough grace, and enough love, to appreciate the fact that God is a good God. And also I can have these conversations and not feel guilty or judgmental of myself, or feel the stigma, or feel some way. It's been a growth process. These things don't just go away just like that. But I know that when we allow God to step into the situation, he turns things around. Now, that experience, when I had the opportunity to write about it, because I've been in so many conversations where, these things come up, and you sit in groups, and women are so reluctant to talk about it. I even had people very close to me who I couldn't interview, because for my thesis, I had to interview mothers who'd gone through miscarriage. And that was the most difficult bit of writing my thesis, because one, I had to pray myself through finding women who would be willing to talk about it. A lot of the people that I spoke to were not willing to speak to me about their experiences, but I felt like time was closing in on me. But God showed me mercy, and I interviewed 12 women. I think that was the most emotionally draining thing I've ever done. Labor was good, pregnancy was good. Interviewing women who've been through the process of miscarriage or experienced miscarriage was the most difficult thing I've done. Yes, amongst other things. And the process was, gosh, it was intense. A lot of them hadn't had the opportunity to actually sit and talk about it and allow themselves to heal. One, because the support wasn't there, and two, because of what society has made it be. Even with medical professionals, nobody shows empathy. I mean, I'm sure there are a handful who are very empathetic about these things, but it's like a lot of them are not. It's almost like, yeah, it's part of the job, it's part of the process, just get on with it, you'll be okay. And that's the most difficult aspect of it. Somebody who's gone through loss, and that's the sort of treatment. Oh, you get on with it, you'll be fine. And that was what came through from all of these women. Now, some of them had to then find support and find ways of helping themselves get out of that funk, which, yeah, it was hard. I had support, but even with the support, I was in pain. It was a difficult experience. You can't, take that away. I interviewed women who had 8 miscarriages, 7 miscarriages, 3 miscarriages, 5 miscarriages. Imagine having this on a repeat. The pain, with every single one of that experience came grief, came another level of pain. So it was almost like pain was being plastered from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and not having the space to share that and actually know that people are really empathetic about what you've been through. That's just, I can't get my head around it. And this is what drives me. And I truly, truly would appreciate your support in us making our journey in motherhood everything beautiful that we can make it. Will there still be challenges? Oh my gosh, it's on a daily. The challenges are there. But the point of this is having spaces where we can talk about it, but then not just talking about it. We also have means of finding respite, of making the decision to keep pushing, putting one foot forward and moving forward, growing in it, embracing it positively and knowing that this process is only making us better. It's only creating, or rather pulling out, the best version of us on a daily basis. We have opportunity to correct, whether mistakes or things that we missed. We have opportunities to do that, to invest in ourselves and to grow to the best of our abilities. I mean, when God is in the process, He makes the journey beautiful. So I remember in my first video, I did an altar call. If you don't know Jesus, this is a good time and a good spot to receive and to accept Jesus. He truly, truly helps us get through all of these life experiences and able to, bounce back, even if you're not bouncing back, but you find ways to pull yourself up again and push forward. And this is what this channel is about. Not to say things that will keep us down, but to remind us that we have opportunities to create these beautiful stories of motherhood where we can share with other people and encourage them, and not always focus on the negative sides or trying sides of complaining about things. But video 2 will come right down to you next week. Have a wonderful time. Remember, subscribe, share, tell. Please leave your comments. I truly want to read your comments and hear what your heart is saying and your experiences and how you were able to get support. Let's make this happen. Somebody else is waiting to read your story and hear about yours. Have a wonderful day.